Welcome to ViviTalks. I'm Vivienne Aerts. Join me in celebrating 100 talented female musicians from my last album, type of thing. Empowering female cacao farmers in Congo's Virunga State Park and restoring the rainforest. Delve into the musical journeys, creative processes, and unique perspectives of these talented women that were involved in the making of this album. Canadian vocalist Kari van der Kloot presents an exciting new voice on the horizon. Living somewhere in the space between jazz and folk, Kari's composition fits seamlessly into a tradition of the great Canadian singer-songwriters such as Joni Mitchell, while honoring her roots in jazz music. Currently based in New York, Kari's project is exciting new fans with her highly original music. Kari's debut album, Seedling, was released in 2016, and her new album, The Architects, was released to great acclaim on June 5th, 2020. On Outside in Music's Next Level imprint. A new album will be released in spring 2024. Listen to our conversation as we delve into Kari's musical journey, moving through different continents and landing in New York City, and what it means to be a musician there. Welcome, Kari, to my official podcast. It's been such a pleasure to, get to know you and have you be part of my album. And you even came to my place to record the part, which was super fun too, and we've been hanging in Brooklyn. So let's just start with where you're from and what's been happening. What are you? How did you get to what you're doing now?
Cool. So I'm from about an hour east of Toronto in Canada, and I moved to New York. I think it was September 2010. So I've been here for a bit. And before that, I was living in Korea for a while, teaching jazz voice. So now here I teach a lot. I gig a little bit, and right now I'm working on my third album. So that's been taking up a lot of my summer.
Nice. Well, that's amazing. And so tell me a little bit more about, you were mentioning that you were in Korea?
Yeah.
So you did like your formal education in Toronto or near or?
Yeah, so I did my bachelor's degree at University of Toronto in jazz voice performance. And then when I graduated, I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to get to travel a little bit. So this really great opportunity just kind of fell in my lap, and I decided to take it almost on a whim. I didn't overthink it too much. So I ended up teaching in Korea at a music college for 5.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was really fun. I got to pretty much design the curriculum that I wanted to teach. So I was teaching the jazz voice improv classes. I was doing the jazz choirs, doing private lessons. So it was a great experience.
Amazing. And then do you speak Korean now?
At the time I was semi-fluent, but these days not so much. It's been a long time since I've had to speak it.
Then what made you decide to come back though?
It felt like the right time. I wanted to do my master's, and I think I wanted to explore more musical opportunities. I think the scene in Korea has grown a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of Koreans who could chime in and talk about that more extensively than I could these days. But at the time, it wasn't quite serving me musically the way I wanted it to. And I had always wanted to come to New York for some point, to do school or maybe live here for a little bit. So I decided to come and do my master's, and then I ended up marrying an American. So it kind of made sense to stick around.
Yeah, great. So now you're focusing also on your own music. You got another album out, your third, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Or
you're working on your third, and the second came out last year, right?
The second came out in 2020. Doesn't feel like 3 years already. And then this one will come out in, I think, spring of 2024. Yeah, so right now I'm in the midst of it. We just finished mixing, so now we have to figure out album artwork, get it mastered, all the not as fun as the music stuff.
But that's exciting. And it's original songs, all of it, or some
Yep.
standards?
Yeah, all my compositions, all my arrangements as well. Yeah, and I've kind of had the same rhythm section for a pretty long time now. So it's the same rhythm section that was on the previous album. And then this one also had Elsa Nielsen playing flute on it. Playing flute, alto flute, bass flute. So that was a really fun writing experience for me because I hadn't written for flute a lot. So it was a good challenge.
Very cool. And I saw in one of your performances you use like a vocoder, right? You use some electronics, don't you?
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
tell me a bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So that's kind of a new thing for me. I've actually been a little scared of technology for a long time. It's definitely not my strong suit. But the pianist that I've worked with for a really long time, he plays a lot of synth as well. So I wanted to get something for myself so that I could figure out how to communicate what I was hearing in my head better to him so that he could play it. So I was kind of shopping around for some stuff early last year, and I settled on this microKORG synth, which also has a vocoder built into it. So I started just messing around with it a little bit and seeing what I could do, just using my voice and some electronics. So it's been really fun, and it's been a pretty big learning curve for me, but it's been kind of helpful to force myself to get more into the technology.
Yeah, that's great. Is it a Korg R3? I have one of those. Or is it
It's a microKORG.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Have you been using it too?
Yeah, here in New York, I have the Korg R3, which is slightly bigger. And then I have the microKORG in the Netherlands. I hate carrying around that stuff. So it's really, it's gonna break if you carry it around a lot. So yeah, the microKORG is so fun. Yeah, it's such a great toy. Yeah, it has all the things and more.
Yeah,
so it does take a while to figure out what the buttons do.
Yeah, totally.
A million of possibilities. Yeah, no, that's exciting. Tell me a little bit more about your creative process. How do you write? How do you compose?
I don't really have much of a regimented process. I guess it's kind of a luxury to be able to do this. I just write when I feel like writing. So a lot of times I'll have like a snippet of an idea and I'll like run over and write it down, and I might not have time to actually flesh it out in that moment. But then like maybe 6 months later, I'll go back and actually finish the song and put some words to it. So it's a little random and it's a little sporadic. Like sometimes I won't write anything for like 6 months, and then sometimes I'll write like 5 songs in 5 days kind of thing. So it just kind of depends, I guess. I like to have a lot of free time when I'm writing. I can't really write on a deadline, I guess, or I can't like force myself to be creative when I'm composing. So it kind of helps if I know that I don't have anywhere to be, or there's nothing like external kind of forcing me out of that little bubble.
I really like that you say that, because some people force themselves to sit down because there is deadlines, but that's how I write. Music just comes to me and I cannot really sit down for it. So having no deadline or just like having it present itself, sorry, that's really, really the greatest way in my experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Although
then I guess like if you're in a situation where you do have a deadline, maybe it doesn't work out so well, but
right. Yeah, well, I do have scribbles, so maybe you that have that too. Do you put them down somewhere or in your phone, or do you capture them so you can
Yeah.
work on it later and finalize it, you know, when there is something urgent?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have a lot of notebooks where I just have like the little scraps, and then every once in a while I'll go back and put them together or like do something else with them.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And you do a lot of teaching because you apparently you love it, and I think you're amazing as a teacher.
Oh, thank you.
What's your way of teaching? How would you describe what do you really want them to get?
Yeah, I feel like it should be a very individual thing, and it really depends on the person you're teaching more than anything. But I guess if there were like some common things that I was trying to get across to everybody, like using your vocal cords in a healthy way to create the sound that you want to create. So I've done some of the somatic voice work courses over the past couple of years, and the idea is that like everything with the body is sound, but then like how the vocal cords actually sound, or how the student wants to interpret what they do, or like what style they want to do, is kind of up to them, and it's not really necessarily our job to judge what they choose to do. It's more is it functional, is their voice functional the way it should be.
Right. So they can choose whatever style if they sing with you, and
Yeah.
And then do you accompany them as well, or do they accompany themselves, or?
I do most of the accompanying in the lessons, but I also teach piano. So I have quite a number of kids that are doing voice and piano with me. And then eventually, like when they get to a point where they feel comfortable, I usually make them accompany themselves.
That's great. Can you back to performing? Can you share a little bit about a significant moment when you felt your music had a profound impact on somebody's life?
Oh, I'm gonna have to think about that one for a little bit. Okay, well here's a little something. My roommate in Korea, she's from Texas, and she's not a musician. She was teaching English at a university. So she didn't really get to hear me sing a lot, because most of the time I was singing at the school, or like doing things that weren't accessible for my other friends. So when she actually finally came to a show here and heard me do my own music, she was pretty surprised, I guess, because it was like a facet of my personality that she had just like never seen or been in touch with before. So I guess that's one little thing that stands out a little bit.
That's great. And can you describe the feeling you get if you're performing? What makes performing so fun for you?
I think the thing that I love the most, especially with jazz, is the interaction with the band. Because yeah, just the communication, and like a lot of it being nonverbal, of course, and then just trying to like figure things out together, and then maybe it goes in a different direction than you thought it was going to go, and like just allowing yourself to be surprised by what the other musicians are doing in that moment. I think that's probably the thing that I love most about jazz too.
Yeah, the freedom of like, yeah, it's every time it's different. I think that's
Yeah.
really part of the magic. Yeah. Nice. You're part of my project, which is all about like chocolate and women and empowerment. And I was wondering, have you faced any of these stereotypes or biases with as a female musician? And how do you challenge those, or how do you overcome them?
Yeah, that's that's a big topic, and I think you've probably received a lot of varied answers on that one. So I think when I went to school, I was actually fairly lucky to have a pretty gender diverse group that I was with. It was a
Mhm.
small program. There were only 12 of us, and I think 5 of us were female, if I'm remembering right, for my year. So I didn't necessarily feel like through my training a lot of gender bias, but I will say that I have a little bit of a chip off my shoulder about being a vocalist, because I think there were a lot of assumptions about like my skill level or my ability to understand things just because of what instrument I had chosen. So
Mm.
I've always had this feeling where if I walk into a room with new people, I kind of have to prove myself right away, or like, almost like I have to show off a little bit just so that they know that, I know what I'm doing, kind of thing. And I think a lot of times like that thing, the whole singer thing, gets kind of tied up with the gender thing a little bit too. So it's a little bit hard to untangle them for me because I feel like they often go hand in hand, at least in my
Mm.
particular situation.
Yeah, that they don't expect you to know harmony or rhythm because you're a singer. It
Yeah.
happens, yeah, and then actually you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's sad that you have to put a little force on yourself, right? Saying, hey, just
Yeah.
yeah, just to show that it's not true, even though
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Did you
yeah.
have
So
similar experiences with that?
well, I've been always surrounded by a bunch of men,
Hmm.
and at some point you become one of the guys. And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's a good or a bad thing,
Yeah.
but well, growing up, the singer would always get the gigs, right?
Right.
Nobody
Yeah.
needs a singer in their band if they have just a guitar trio or they would ask the saxophone.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's you're just hanging with the guys, and it's easier to not have a go in that.
Yeah.
So it's hard to put a finger on it, and it's most of it, it's not, people are not really conscious about it anyway, but
Yeah.
yeah, there is a dynamic, especially with singers and female, that it's not equal yet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For
it's
sure.
sort of a power dynamic, and if you are very powerful or like high achiever, then people could be a little scared of you, and you've been, sometimes they think you're like a bitch, right? Because you're so
Yeah.
powerful. Whereas the same power in represented within a guy would not have been threatening at all.
Right.
It's
For
just like
sure.
expertise. And yeah, I think, addressing these issues in the moment, that's could be a solution.
Hmm.
But in general, it's better to just feature women and their strength and just show. I mean, that was this whole project, to show how amazing female musicians I have in my
Yeah.
bubble, and it's a
Yeah.
lot. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I find out more and more. Every now I get to meet all these other people, and I'm like, oh my god, you're so cool too. And you
Yeah.
should have been part, but yeah, no, maybe
Yeah.
for the next project.
Yeah, for sure. That actually brings up a
Mm.
really good point. Like, women as band leaders have the power to make sure that women are represented in their ensembles too,
Right.
and to like make sure, you know, they're not hiring jerks or like, I'm not gonna hire somebody who isn't treating me right in a gender-based way just because he sounds good. Because
Right.
there's plenty of people you can hire who are going to be kind and
Yeah.
also sound really good. Yeah, so I think like that's something that we can use to our advantage, is just like using our hiring power now that like we're booking gigs, you know?
Right. Yeah. I always choose the nice people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How about this one? What advice would you give aspiring women musicians who are just starting their musical career?
Um,
Hmm.
Something that I think probably would have been helpful for me is having more mentorship. Um,
Mhm.
so I would say reach out to some of the musicians you admire, and like take some lessons with them, even if it's just like one, or like open up the channels of communication, because then that's an ally that you have later, if you maintain that relationship. um
Right.
yeah, that's something I really wish that I had been better about when I was younger.
That's a great, yeah. It's all about community and who do you know, and then the mentorship in different ways, and being aware that a teacher, might be a great musician, but maybe not so much of a good teacher. But sometimes
Hmm.
there's a good teacher that really, yeah, really takes you somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, being aware of that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, like who you get placed with at school might not necessarily be the best fit for you. And if you're kind of exploring things on the outside, then maybe you can like take the good from it, but also like get other information from somewhere else too.
Yeah. How do you navigate the balance between like staying true to your artistic vision and meeting commercial expectations? As in, I mean,
Good question.
you could twist that different ways, right? How do you balance like art and work, or right? You paying the
Hmm.
bill, or maybe you have to do stuff that is still music, but it's maybe not the perfect music that you would
Right.
choose.
Yeah. I don't know if I have the answer to that yet. Like maybe that's something I need to figure out still. Um, I think uh most of my gigs over the past couple of years have been my music. And people don't necessarily think of me as like singing standards. I still like to, but no one's hiring me to do that these days. Um, so it can be kind of a fine line, because I think my music can sort of be like not jazz enough for jazz places, and like not um singer-songwriter enough for other places. So sometimes I'm kind of in this weird in between spot, and I'm not sure like where I should be playing, or like who should I be like trying to get to listen to me, kind of thing. Um, yeah, so I guess my answer is I don't know.
That's fine. How do you think, or what's your, do you have a plan or a vision of how to grow as an artist? Is that like doing more gigs, or is that like art, like audience building, or is it like posting a lot on social media?
Yeah.
How do
um
you grow as an artist? How do you get wider?
Right. Yeah. When I did the last album, I was working with a publicist who had a social media coordinator. And that was actually really helpful for me, because I'm not like I said before, I'm not super technologically advanced. So like all the social media stuff is not the easiest thing in the world for me. But making someone else do it for me actually really helped. So I learned a lot just from watching what she was doing, and it did help me kind of figure out like how I should be handling it on my own. And I probably don't do as much of that stuff as I should be doing. But it's always kind of in the back of my head now. Like I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just don't always do it. Um, I would like to be playing and recording more too, but then of course the money situation is fluid depending on where you're playing and who you're recording with. But yeah, I guess those are the goals. Now we just have to kind of make it all happen.
Yeah, no, that's a journey though. Yeah, I always tell myself I need to post more.
Yeah.
It's part of what you do in the end.
Yeah. 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 It helps to kind of consider it as part of the job, I guess, rather than like something personal you're doing for yourself.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the album, The Architects. You were on the label, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you then, that was the same band as you have for the next album, or?
Just about, yeah. So I released it on Outside in Music's Next Level imprint, which is a really nice label. You know, for whoever's listening to this, go look them up because there's a lot of great artists on their label. I had the same rhythm section, which was Jamie Reynolds, Gary Wong, and Nathan Elman Bell. And I also had my dear friend Lisanne Tremblay playing violin on the record. Yeah, so that it was really fun. We had been working together as a quintet for several years before we actually recorded it. So all of the music had been played live a bunch of times already. So all we had to do when we went into the studio was just play. Like there weren't any questions. Like we didn't have to like overthink anything. We just got in there and like did a couple takes of everything. And yeah, it was probably the easiest recording experience I've ever had.
Amazing. And did you have no charts then, because everybody already knew it?
There were charts, but like they weren't necessarily looking at them as much as they might have for this past recording where we hadn't played everything as much together. Yeah, so it was so easy and nice.
And were you then able to just spend a whole day, or how does it work generally?
We booked 2 days, and I did this for this last recording too. But then I kind of realized we got through, I think, 8 tunes in the first day. And then there were just like 2 left over for the next day. And then we just kind of played around a little bit, you know, like we took out some synthesizers and messed around, and then like I added a bunch of extra vocal layers, and Lisanne did a bunch of extra violin layers. Yeah, so it was nice to like have that extra time to just kind of like see what happened, and some of it's on the record and some of it's not. but it was like fun to just like explore a little bit.
And do you have any special preparation for yourself and your voice before you go on or before you do recordings?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty rigid about it. So I don't drink a lot of alcohol anyway, but I basically stopped drinking about a month before any recording situation, because it can be really drying on the vocal cords. And then like I kind of stopped going out too, because I don't like having to speak really loudly in restaurants and bars, because that can be kind of trying on the vocal cords too. Yeah, so I basically turned into a hermit before the recording. I know it's kind of lame, but I think a lot of people don't really think about how delicate our instrument is. You know, it's just like these 2 tiny little things in our throat. So it's definitely different than, you know, being a pianist or being a drummer, where like, you know, your instrument is external and like there's different ways to take care of it. So yeah, I'm very, very aware of it leading into big performances or recording sessions. And then I kind of do my best to just like shut out everything else in my life and just focus on that.
And do you do warm-ups too?
Yeah. I spend like a good chunk of time warming up every day, like trying to balance different ranges, different like head voice, chest voice stuff. Yeah, so I'm pretty regimented about that too.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like for me, I don't really need warm-ups. I do need technical exercises, But if I just wake up, I trust my voice to do what it does. And maybe I don't hit the high notes right away, but yeah, I felt like if I'm scared they're not going to be there, then a warm-up wouldn't really help that, right? And I just need technical exercise. It's like I can always ride my bike, right? No matter and obviously if you're sick, then that's a different discussion, right? If there's a flu
for sure.
But yeah, that's but yeah, so I tend to not mix up warm-ups and technical exercise, even though sometimes they're crossover, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, somebody told me, oh, your voice is warm, but because you just woke up and you talk to, your grandma on the phone, right? That's technically already a voice that's warmed up. And I thought that was fascinating. And the more I thought about it, was like, wow. So maybe the warm-ups I've been doing are actually not warm-ups, but just technical exercises.
Right. Yeah. That's true. We do kind of like mix and match what we're calling them, like warm-ups really are just technique. Yeah. Huh.
Cool. How do you navigate between music and other parts in your life? Do you still have hobbies? Because I've been suffering from not having hobbies, but actually I found out I have a lot of hobbies after.
Oh, that's good.
But I was for years, I was thinking, oh, I don't have any hobbies. My music was my hobby, now it's my work. And where's I do have a lot of hobbies. I love like the arts and crafts and making like fashion stuff. And it turns out it's good after all. But yeah, how do you
Yeah, I don't always get that balance right. Especially like in the middle of the school year when I'm really bogged down with teaching. Like sometimes it feels like there's no space for anything else. But I like to read a lot. That's something that kind of keeps my mind calm. I've been cooking a lot more, especially since COVID, since we were home more. So that's been pretty fun. Yeah, I think I'd like to have more hobbies, but sometimes my schedule is like so weird that it doesn't like allow me to take another class or do something. But I think something I would like to do is like maybe take a ballet class or something.
Cool.
Yeah, I used to do salsa and ballroom dancing when I was in Korea, and I haven't really done it since I got to New York. But ballet was always something I wanted to try. And I know I'm a little old, obviously, but I think it could be fun.
Oh, I think you're never too old to move, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I love dancing, though, and no formal education. Not at all.
Yeah.
Very awesome. So tell me a little bit about the exciting projects coming up, your new album. So it needs to be mixed now. Are you doing that yourself? Or are you working with a mixing engineer?
Yeah, I'm working with the engineer. So I've actually done all 3 of my albums at the Bunker in Williamsburg in Brooklyn, with the same engineer each time. So it's actually pretty cool. Like it's nice to like have that continual relationship. So he just finished mixing it, or we just finished mixing it together. And then they'll handle the mastering in-house as well. So it's all kind of like the same team that's like seen all of my music progress over these years.
Oh, that's great. And will it be on the same label, or you're
that I'm not sure about yet. I guess that's kind of the next step to figure out now that everything's mixed down. See what I want to do for label stuff.
Yeah, and then obviously there needs to be a tour.
Hopefully
a couple of concerts, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's one thing we didn't get to do last time, because the last album came out in June in 2020, so it's like all of the plans we had were just erased, like completely gone.
Yeah. Well, this coming year, it's gonna be great.
Yeah. We got to make up for the last one too.
Yeah. Awesome. Where can people find you? How can they connect? If they can they study with you online too? If you want, I don't know if you want more students, but
Well, I'm always open to hearing from people. I do prefer teaching in person if possible, but now that we have Zoom as a tool, I am open to that. My website is karivanderkloot.com. You can find me pretty easily on Facebook. I'm the only one. Nobody else has my name. And same thing with Instagram. Like I'm the only one. I'm the only Kari Vanderkloot there. So yeah, if you know how to spell it, you'll be fine.
Well, it's actually a Dutch last name, right?
Yeah.
For my Dutch fans, Van der Kloot is, but you grew up in Canada, so
yeah.
Your grandpa moved, or is it way back?
Actually, my dad is Dutch. He was born in Curacao in the Dutch Antilles in the Caribbean. And he lived there until I think he was 6 or 7, and then they went back to the Netherlands. And then he came to Canada when he was, I think, 16. So yeah, he's lived a lot of places. I don't know why, but at some point, I guess maybe because people were mispronouncing it so much, he kind of switched over to a more Anglo version of our last name, but I have no idea when that happened or why, so I should ask him about that sometime.
Did he speak Dutch to you sometimes?
He did. I wish I had absorbed a little bit more of it, or like maybe asked for some more formal lessons. And he actually doesn't have a lot of people to speak Dutch with himself anymore. So I think it's really just my uncle and my aunt. Like when he talks to them on the phone, he'll speak in Dutch. And he grew up speaking Papiamento as well in Curacao, because that's their official language. But I don't think he remembers any of that.
Oh, wow. And you have visited the Netherlands too, right? You have still... you visit your uncle or no?
Yeah, my aunt lives in Den Haag. And then one of my cousins is still there as well. So I went in, what was it, like 2017, I think, maybe 2018, to go see them. So yeah, that was actually my first time in the Netherlands.
Nice. Yeah, it's fun. They have good cheese. You know, I love the countryside and the little canals. And,
it's beautiful. It really is. Awesome.
Well, so great to talk to you. And thank you again for being part of this album.
Thank you for having me.
Encourage everybody to check you out, and good luck with the new album. When it's ready, we'll share it.
Thank you.
As I conclude this episode of ViviTalks, I want to express my sincere gratitude for joining me in this musical journey. I hope you enjoyed exploring the stories and experiences of the incredible female musicians on my album. To stay updated on our latest episodes, subscribe to ViviTalks on your favorite podcast platform. Connect with me on social media through Vivica, and please check out my album Type of Thing, a musical exchange featuring 100 female musicians to empower female cacao farmers of Virunga State Park in Congo. It's about more than just music. It's about making a positive impact in the world. Your support is part of that journey, so thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, keep celebrating the power of music, and let's continue to amplify the voices of remarkable women in the industry. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep the music flowing. With love and gratitude. Till soon.